So this is the SARS-CoV-2 virus. It's commonly called COVID-19, and it has disrupted our world globally. 110.7 million cases internationally. It has changed the way we consume food, the way we buy products, the way we live our lives, the way we go to work. It's changed how we educate ourselves. And today we're going to talk about how it affected our food supply chain. If you're below a certain age, you probably have a picture of a plate of food on your table or on your phone. And what I want to draw attention to here is not the chicken shawarma or the fatu salad, but all of the things that went in making this food, all of the things that changed how we ate and what happens when there's a disruption from the farm to the table. And there's a study in Indiana that talks about $500 million from March until January just in the food sector. So just for a second, think about $500 million in the food sector in Indiana and how that relates to multiplied by 50 for all of the 50 states or 195 countries. And we really start thinking about the mass amount of effects that COVID-19 has had on our food supply. We think about who's being impacted. There's 222.2 million jobs in the U.S. associated with agriculture, including food service, farming, transportation, beverages, and textiles. And really, 6.4% of the U.S. Jobs are associated with food service. And so when policies impacted where we consume that food, it changed. In the terms of the food dollars, which is the amount of money that goes per dollar of food that we spend, 8 cents on the dollar is spent in farming, which is really what we think about agriculture. And agriculture is more than cows, plows, and sows, hicks, chicks, and sticks. 37.4 cents on the dollar is being sent in food service. So again, when we start consuming more food at home and less food away from home, which in 2019, 55% of us ate food out of home more than food in home. That's changed drastically during COVID-19 and expected to continue to change. So those Buffalo Wild Wings you used to eat, you're no longer consuming chicken wings at the restaurant. You're now consuming them at home, or not at all, and eating chicken breast. If you shopped in 2020, you saw this, which are out of stocks. Our food supply functions on a lean, just-in-time production. It's production, just-in-time processing, just-in-time distribution, and that limits the cost and keeps things cheap for us. But what it does is it creates these lags from the time that we had panic buying and to the time they showed back up on the store. In terms of transportation, you had these diseases impacting the transporters, but also the backups. 3.4 cents of our food dollars are being spent on transportation, and what happens when ships are being stuck on the shores of on our shores and can't come in for deep cleaning and disinfectant. I want to talk about the broiler industry because that's my background and I'm most interested in it. It's a vertically integrated industry. It's what we eat the most amount of protein in the U.S. is in chickens. 70% of that chicken protein is consumed in broilers. Everything is owned from the chickens to distribution from the integrator. And so we're going to talk about that. This supply chain is just a simple version of it. And we've really talked about retail and wholesale. And we're going to talk about processing and farmers in a minute. But going back to my chicken wing thing, if we're not eating chicken wings in the restaurant and we're now consuming chicken breast, there's a production lag that is going to occur. And there's a different type of chicken and size of chicken being produced. And how does that impact from COVID-19? The biggest impact of COVID-19 was in mortalities and morbidities. And in terms of processing, this led to people being out of work, a labor shortage. Also in policies changing how many people and foreign workers, which agriculture relies on. So we have a labor shortage of people who are here, a labor shortage of migrant labor who can move in, and this led to temporary meat plant closures. And the idea, we'll just go to a different plant. There were no plants to go to. And you can't just readily change one size bird for another at a certain plant with very highly technical equipment. And so what we had was these plants going offline because producers and these laborers couldn't get enough people to work, in addition to cleaning and disinfecting, which led to bottlenecks in the industry, in our food supply. And these bottlenecks mean that if you can't process these birds, they stay on farms longer, which means that they're going to grow more and we spend more money on them, which means they're larger when they come out. And so these bottlenecks had these rippling effects from our consumption and panic buying all the way to the producer. In terms of processing, the ripple effects mean that you have larger birds, which means it takes more labor in order to process. We have a labor shortage, right? So now not only are we short in labor, but now we need more labor in addition to the additional cleaning and disinfecting to keep us all safe and healthy and reduce fomite transmission. And so the chicken or the egg problem, if we have too many chickens that are out there and we don't have enough processing, then what do we do with the eggs? Because you need an egg to produce a chicken, the age-old quandary. And so what we had is a 12% reduction in egg sets, which means that we're not producing eggs to go on farms. And when we have this reduction in egg sets, it changes, again, there's this biological lag, and this leads to empty houses for producers. So these chicken farmers had cleaned and disinfected their farms and were ready for their next flock, ready for their next round of income, and it doesn't exist. The market is empty. And so what we lead to is this farmers losing income because there are no eggs to set because of the uncertainty in processing. And so super briefly, let's have what we talked about is this implications in consumption, which are dine in and dine at home, and also the implications of labor and processing and the bottlenecks that exist and the changes in chick placements, which leads to farmer income. And all of the other economical impacts related throughout this entire supply chain. So let's talk about how those implications in Tennessee, right? This is where we live. And so in Tennessee, that cost for the broiler industry was $227 million. That was a loss of $13.3 million in tax revenue and 672 jobs in allied industries. And so when we think about here at home, the implications of our broiler industry and implications of COVID-19, it seems to be very costly. But some people describe the supply chain as brittle. Let's think about it more as elastic. We rise above and we overcame. Our grocery stores are no longer empty. Our chick placements are back up to normal levels, or at least 2019 levels. And our chicken's being processed and our plants are back on stock. So when you go to the grocery store and you see the non-out of stocks and you see all of the food, so just remember and think about all of the ways in which our food supply system had to come together and to make sure that you had that food at the right time, at the right place, and how lucky it is that we live here. And with that, thank you.